Hey guys, it's KatoKen here again. Today I just want to talk, a little bit more about my favorite topic apparently, neutral. But specifically what I want to talk about is threat ranges and how they affect reaction speed. Because reactions aren't actually based on raw reaction time, like simple reaction time, something you could test on one of these free reaction test sites. They're based on anticipation for the most part. And the question is anticipation of what? And that's what I'm here to talk about today. Threat ranges and how they affect reactions. So I have my little handy trusty notepad here. So I wanted to cover some points so we could get a good understanding of what we're looking for. So threat ranges and reactions. The options you have in neutral and the way the neutral game is played in a fighting game is dictated by the movement options, character archetypes, and character specific options, obviously, and the system mechanics, and the speed of those options, and also the ranges that they occur at. So, for example, if you are playing a game like Melty Blood, there's no walking on the ground, playing footsies and, poking with crouch medium kicks and whatnot. It's much more of like, a game based in the air. So you're jumping around, you're double backdashing, you're triple jumping, you're doing things of that nature. So that will cover the movement part of the game. And I also said it would be more of character archetypes. So, Cammy's a rushdown character. So she would want to get in on you. So her neutral is mostly focused on getting in on you. And another character who's a zoner, Gal, he's trying to keep you out. He's trying to keep you at a certain range so he can play his optimal game. And then system mechanics. This is a big one, especially for Street Fighter 6, which it kind of out prioritizes the other aspects of neutral in this game, and that's why it's so important. But system mechanics, obviously, drive rush, obviously, DI, obviously having to manage your meter and what that does to what that does to your EX options and what that does like to things like parry and stuff of that nature. That's system mechanics are very important to the neutral in Street Fighter 6 specifically. I would say the whole game is really balanced around them. And then character specific things. So Cammy's dive kick, Cammy's spin, her crouch medium kick being special cancelable, things of that nature. Character specific options. And finally, the speed of those options. This is also another reason why Street Fighter 6 neutral is extremely different from a lot of more traditional fighters and Street Fighter 5 specifically. The speed of options. So drive rush very fast in the neutral. Wait, why am I doing that? Drive rush very fast in the neutral. Has many options and things like that. Also, drive rush speed and length also differs from character to character. So that also ties in with character specifics. If when you play fighting games for a long time, you'll understand that everything is connected in a way. So, if I say one thing and one thing is one way, it might be different in another case, but then in another case, it'll be the same or it'll relate. A lot of things in fighting games, you have to determine them case by case. So there are no, you know, universal answers to everything. The only thing you can really do is think about everything to understand everything. That's why labbing and watching your replays is so important. But that's not the topic of the day. The topic of the day is threat ranges and reactions and how those two things, correlate and affect each other. So point number 2. Spacing dictates your options and reactions to a large degree. Learning matchups and other things listed in like point number 1 determine what you should most likely look for and where you should stand in a fighting game. So where you should stand in a fighting game is extremely important because it dictates what you're able to react to. So a big problem that classically you hear about Street Fighter 6, especially in the beginning months of this game, and even probably still to this day, is there's no neutral in the game. It's not footsie based. It's a party game, and those are usually set by salty players who are losing. But to be fair, they aren't exactly wrong. They do have a point to some degree, especially if you come from older Street Fighters or you play more traditional fighters, grounded based fighters. Most traditional grounded based fighters, you play around the mid range like right here. You try to play around your opponent's longest poke. An example of Cammy, that would be crouch heavy, standing heavy kick. And the reason why you would do that is because what you want to do is stay outside of that range, and you want to whiff punish things, or you want to counter poke things, or you want to jump in, or in Cammy's case, you want to dive kick in, or whatever. Whatever option that you think they do. But traditionally speaking, in most fighting games, at least the ones I've played, I speak for myself, they're mostly mid-range fighters, and there's not a lot of strong neutral skip options like drive rush that kind of like negate the mid-range. So why are your reactions determined by the options that are available within a given range? Well, it's simple. When there's too many options in one given range, there's too many good things to look for. And if there's too many good options that are likely to happen, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to get mental stacked. As an addendum to my, previous videos. There's too many options to look for, and they're too fast within one range. So you're going to not be able to react to all of them, and then it becomes a guessing game. And you don't want that, because guessing is not conducive to getting good long term, because if you're just guessing, then there's no problem to solve. You just guess wrong. And the only thing you do is guess better. So for example, in Street Fighter 6, because of drive rush, because of the speed of drive rush, because of the speed of jump ins, and because of also trying to play the neutral game, it's really, honestly, it's kind of impossible to play mid-range in this game. You have to play from a farther range, because what you want to do is you want to limit the amount of things you have to look for. If I'm in the mid-range against Cammy, or really any character in this game, they have so many options that are likely to happen. She could spin knuckle me. She could drive her shin on me. She could spin knuckle again. She really likes spin knuckle today. I think it's this one. She could dive kick in on me. She could drive rush. Yada yada yada. You get the point. She could also just freaking jump in on me. I wouldn't expect it. And so that's the problem with being at the wrong range in fighting games. That's why you want to stand at the right range. And today we're trying to learn how to know what the right range is to stand at. And also that also depends on what options your opponent is showing you, like how good of a high level, how good of a player they are. But we'll get to that point later. The point is, why are reactions in fighting games determined by the threat ranges and options that people have and their speeds? The reason why is because human beings cannot inherently react to everything in fighting games. It's literally impossible. There's a difference between simple reaction time, which is raw reaction speed, and then there's also choice reaction time. Choice reaction time is when you're specifically looking for specific options because they're likely to occur. So you will eliminate certain options from you thinking about them because they're not likely to happen. So that's how mental stack works. You eliminate certain options because they're not likely to happen. And those options are determined by their threat ranges and their speed and where you're standing. So that's why it's very important to know where you're standing in fighting games, to know what to look for and to know what to react to. That's also why it's important to know the matchup. Like I said previously, everything in fighting games is related. So you have to think about pretty much everything to get good and solve problems. But for the sake of Street Fighter 6, I would say against most players, especially if you're not fighting at like top levels, you would probably want to stand back a little bit further, because to be honest with you, if you get into mastering and you're in the low master ranks, people are not trying to play footsies with you, and they shouldn't, because that's not the point of Street Fighter 6. What they're trying to do is they're just trying to get in on you in any way they can possibly do. So if you're trying to play footsies with them in the mid range, you're going to have a lot of problems because you're just going to get mental stack. They're just going to do whatever special moves or whatever neutral skip options they have, and then they're just going to mental stack you, and it's going to be impossible to react to all of them. So what I would say is what you want to do is stand from a little bit farther back, so that way it's more possible to react to their options. But there's a flaw to that too as well, because there's a counter to everything. But on to point 3 for now. Point 3. Different games have, and even different characters have, different threat ranges. So you have to stand and play in different ranges against certain characters and abilities, because your ability to react becomes limited in certain ranges or increased. So you need to know general places to stand versus the specifics. Okay, so as I was saying, if I'm close up to Cammy, it becomes very hard to react to anything she does, or really any character in this game, because of, like, the constant threat of drive rush. So that's why I'm advocating playing from more of a far range in Street Fighter 6, because playing mid range is impossible. But here's the problem: you can't infinitely walk back, because if you do that, you're in the corner, and now you're in a really bad situation because you don't want to be in the corner in any fighting game. So what is the solution? What happens when you can't really move back to react properly? So you're looking for dive kick, right? If you're too close, it's kind of hard to react to dive kick because you're scared of drive rush, you're scared of jump in, you're scared of so many options, you're scared of walk up crouch medium kick, yada yada yada. But oh my god. But if you're at the tip of dive kick, it's much more possible to react to it. So that's why, spacing is so important. That's why everybody, talks about spacing, because it dictates what is possible to react to and what is not. But what happens when, you're a lot closer and you can't really adjust your spacing? What happens when you're forced to play mid-range where things become a lot more guessy? Well, what you want to do is you want to use option selects. And all the option select really is so if two options are likely to happen, or more than one options are too likely to happen, and you don't know like what to try to react to, you just use a third option that allows you to mitigate that circumstance. So what would that mean? Okay, so this is dive kick and this is jumping, but I'm gonna put on, I think this is spin or some ground option. So I'm not sure if Cammy's gonna dive kick. I'm not sure if Cammy's gonna spin. So what do I want to do to try to deal with this problem? One thing I could do, I could just neutral jump, because neutral jump would be a great option to dealing with both of these problems, because the vectors that Cammy is attacking from, the dive kick, they all follow this angle. They all come about to right this point. So what if you could do something like that, and then you get plus frames, you get pressure. If you do it early enough, you'll punish Cammy. Or if you do a faster button. So you see how I'm basically option selecting both of these options. I'm making it so where I don't have to try to raw react to one option. See, I thought she was going to try to do spin knuckle, and I wanted to crouch light punch it. But the problem is that's a direct call out. That is a hard call out, because I'm basically saying I know Cammy will do this one specific option, and I'm going to use my high reward punish to stop it. But the problem is, what if she does another thing and you just get dive kicked in the face, and now Cammy's in your face and she's doing Cammy things and she's rushing you down? So what happens when there are more than likely two good options that are likely to happen, and you can't keep adjusting your spacing forever to react? Because eventually you're going to be forced to play this guessy mid-range in Street Fighter 6. I would say you would want to try to use like an option select like neutral jump, or you would want to parry them. Obviously you want to get perfect parry, because parry doesn't really take you out of the mix-up, but what it does is it helps mitigate the guessing game of either her jumping in and doing a strike dive kick, or whether her doing spin knuckle. But here's also a reason why you want to do parry. So this is dive kick and this is jump in. So how can you counter someone doing neutral jump on you? Well, one thing you could do, you could wait and you could try to air to air, which is what a lot of Cammy players will do in the Cammy matchup, right? So then what can you do to really overcome that? Well, what you can do is, if you know they're going to try to freaking jump in on you or forward jump to stop it, you can walk under them and get a punish. But that's kind of a hard read. Kind of. So what do you want to do at that point? Really what you want to do is, I would say you would want to parry. And the reason why is because, well, if you get a perfect parry, wonderful. But let's say you don't get a perfect parry. A lot of times what people try to do is, when they jump in and they get parried, a lot of times what they try to do, they try to like tick throw you. So if they try to tick throw you, there's a gap in their pressure because of the walk up. So then what you could do, if you're a character with this, you could DP, or maybe you could even like drive reversal to get out of that situation to reset the neutral again. And that's really good, because now you can go back to spacing yourself and playing at far range and then reacting to what they're doing. And now you have a more likely read on what they're going to do, because you've seen what they want to do. So that's what I would recommend, trying to like parry and then reset that situation. Hopefully you can like practice and get a perfect parry. That would be the best thing to do. But if you can't, you can just parry, and depending on what they do, you may be able to, bust out of that situation. Or at worst, if you can't, you can just take the throw, which, is a pretty good option too. So parry can help mitigate, some of that guessing game in the mid range in Street Fighter 6. And another thing, so if you have been option selecting and punishing them for getting in, another option you could do, like let's say they start getting scared and they start hesitating and not want to do anything. Well, now that's a good time to drive rush in. So that's another option. But me personally, I would probably want to stick to trying to option select them for the most part and adjusting my space, because they lead to being more consistent, because you're in more control of things that are generally happening, and you're not committing as much, so you're more able to react. But like I said, drive rushing in is also viable, especially when you've like conditioned the opponent to stop doing, when you've conditioned them to calm down. So that's also reliable too. But like I said, me personal opinion, from a more traditional based fighting game player, I would like more control and reaction and consistency. So, okay, point number 3, I believe. Okay, point for number 4, rule breakers. So what are neutral skips? Well, they are tools that allow you to skip whatever the defined neutral is / range / spacing, where you can't react to neutral options and get in automatically. So does that make neutral skips inherently bad, or are they a part of neutral? Neutral skips are a part of neutral, and they are also like annoying things about neutral. They're a part of neutral, and they're not inherently bad if they are balanced correctly. So, I've seen a lot of posts of people talking about how they don't like the neutral in Street Fighter 6 because it has no footsies, and then someone will post an image or post a clip of like, Makoto skipping across the screen claiming that there's never been neutral in fighting games. That's kind of a dumb take, because neutral skips were not always inherently tied to system mechanics in older games. They tended to be more character specific. So that's like comparing apples to oranges. That's why I said you have to think about everything in fighting games, because you can't use Makoto as an example of there not being footsies in fighting games, because that's just one character, and the game would have options, and it would have tools for you to like deal with that. That's a character specific matchup problem. That's not every character in the game having drive rush, or every character in the game having DI. Those two things aren't equivocal. That'll cause confusion. But okay, so neutral skips. It's just essentially, basically a tool that lets you get in without having to like completely evaluate what your opponent's options is. It's like, I'm gonna just do it option, honestly. But it can be used in a more like calculated way, like as I was like explaining in the previous points. Neutral skips are only really annoying or bad when there's not a lot of good counterplay to them, because they feel too rewarding in relation to the effort that the defender has to do to counter them. And that's like kind of the argument with drive rush. And it's like, I understand it to a certain, I understand both sides, to why some people could say just get good, deal with it. And I also understand why a lot of older traditional fighters would think it's scrubby, because it kind of is in a lot of ways, because of the speed of things like drive rush and the ranges that it has, and also looking for the footsie game, and also looking for like the OG neutral skip jump, or looking for character specific options like dive kick. It literally makes it impossible to play mid range. This game's neutral is literally dictated by trying to react to drive rush and all these other neutral skip options, because you can't get to top level play and higher level play if you can't deal with them. Because if you have problems in a fighting game and you don't deal with them, you're basically just going to get put in the infinite of, okay, you're going to fight this person, they're going to figure out what your weakness is, and then they're going to spam it, and then if you never fix it, you'll never win. So you'll never win consistently enough to get to high level play. Fighting games are about fixing your problems and understanding why people are doing things, understanding why you're doing things, and knowing how to counter and address things, and continually adapting. That's what fighting games are about. So why do people complain about neutral skips? Because they seem to be all power, no skill. So they're just options that people can do, or like lower level players can just do and throw out, and it's on the defender. It's on the defender to be the smart one to like, you know, be able to counter and deal with it. So, as I was showing you in the previous examples, how can you really... So if you can't play mid-range, then what can you really do? Like I said, you have to play from farther ranges, and you have to try to, like, you know, to react from there. But there's going to come a point to where you can't keep playing mid-range, because if you do, you're going to... I mean, you can't keep walking back, because if you do, you're going to get put in a corner. So what options do you have to deal with the mid-range when you're in that guessy situation? Well, I already showed you. You want to use option selects, like neutral jump, or if you have things like a DP, or you just want to use option selects to deal with that situation, because you don't want a hard guess. You want to like make the best possible guess that you can to deal with the most amount of options. But obviously, people are going to have options to counter that. If you're neutral jumping, people will try to jump forward and air to air you. So then, you know, you would try to walk under them, or what you would do is you would start to parry them. You would try to want to perfect parry them to get to, like, you know, the best possible situation. But if you can't, just do a regular parry. And then if you have like a good bust out option, if you know they're going to try to do something like walk up tick throw you, which a lot of people do when they get parried and it's not a perfect parry, or if you think they're just going to try to just mash on you, if you think they're just going to like just mash on you, for example. Oh, that was the wrong option. But if you think they're going to like just jump in on you, right, and just mash on you, okay, just hold the parry, and then you can just walk back out of that situation for the most part. You know, granted, they don't do like a quick low or something like that. Like I said, there's always counterplay to everything. But the point is, in the mid-range, you only have really 3 options if you're in that mid-range. Move back so you can better react. But if you can't do that, you have to use option selects. Or, you have to use your worst option. You have to just freaking guess. Which, you know, sooner or later you will have to guess. That's just a reality of the way the neutral is made in Street Fighter 6. So, you know, I don't know what to tell you. That's just the way the game is developed and made. It's intentionally made like that. Okay, on to my next point. Point number 5, and I'll take all these points. Point number 5: why must there be unreactable options in fighting games? Why must there be unreactable options in fighting games? The level of player determines what you look for. Putting it all together, and, you know, matchup example and breakdown, which we've kind of been doing this whole game. So, why must there be unreactable options in fighting games? Because if everything was reactable in fighting games, turtling would be the best option. People would just turtle. They would just turtle, and then they would just wait for you to do something, and they would punish you, and then they would always win, and then they would get the life lead and run away. You know, kind of how Honda players and Gal players play. So that's why there has to be options to counter that, and that's why there can't be like, and that's why things can't be completely reactable, because the game would just evolve into hitting the other person first and then running away, and that's what the game would be. So the next point. Oh, the skill level of a player determines what you look for. So the better you get, you'll be able to cope more with these more neutral skip options, because you'll know where to stand, and you'll be able to more consistently punish them, and then you'll more consistently win. So then when you get to higher levels of play, you know, higher level players or more better players, they won't use those options as much, and then you'll be able to play more of a footsie game. This is the classic Street Fighter like loop. So in Street Fighter 5, you know, you always were dealing with people jumping or people doing like dash and neutral, right? And until you can deal with that, you're not allowed to play higher level neutral. And the reason why is because, like I said, if you can't deal with problems and you're always getting checked by something, well then until you deal with those problems, you can't go on. And it's the same thing in every other fighting game. Until you're able to more consistently, to a reasonable level, because, you know, Street Fighter 6 is kind of meant to be a little bit more variable and neutral. But until you're able to more consistently, you know, check people in the mid-range for doing these neutral skip options, you're not going to get to higher levels of play. It's just the facts of the nature. But when you do get to higher levels of play, higher levels will, you know, they won't use these neutral skips as much. They'll still use them, but it'll be more like calculated and peppered in at the right times. And also it's dependent on who you play and whatnot, and many factors. Okay, another thing. So then the final point, putting it all together and matchup breakdown. So I've kind of been doing that the whole video, like with Cammy. And I'm just using Cammy because, you know, she's my character and I kind of understand her a lot. But you can do this with any character. So like I said, I've kind of been showing you the whole video. So from farther ranges, like I said, you kind of want to stand in a farther range. Why? Cammy's a rush down character. She's going to try to get in on you. She will move forward at some point to get in on you. You can't keep moving back forever because she will get to mid range. So then what do? The most likely options you kind of want to look for is going to be like, you know, the drive rushing, the spin, or like, you know, dive kick in or jump. So, you know, neutral jump kind of beats. It beats like spinning. It beats dive kick. It beats like a hooligan. It even beats like, you know, drive rush. So that beats a lot of options. So then what are they gonna do? They're gonna more likely try to like air to air you or stop you from jumping. So then, you know, you could try to like walk under them. Or what you could do, like I said, you could parry them. You want to try to get a perfect parry, but if you can't, like I showed you, you want to try to walk back. Oh, perfect parry. Boom. Do it again. Ooh, she tried to walk up. So then I counter mash and I stopped her. Because she tried to walk up throw me. She just mashed on me. Oh, because she didn't react to the fact that I parried. Okay, so now I could just parry, block, parry all that, and then just walk back and then reset the neutral. And then, you know, if she tries to be cheeky and she tries to jump, I'll more likely react because I know that she likes to jump more. So I'll react DP, or I'll react air to air her, or maybe I'll just back air to air her. And that's kind of like the type of thing that I'm trying to explain. So why? So how do we put this all together? So threat ranges. Threat ranges are determined by many factors: movement speed, character-specific options, game-specific options, and yada yada yada. So how do you react to things in fighting games? It's based on choice reaction time. So it means that you have to look for the right things. If you can't react in a fighting game, it's because you haven't organized your thoughts and understanding of the game in such a way to know what to look for, to choose what to look for at a certain time, and to know to like what not to look for at a certain times. It's a problem of understanding, not of physically being able to react or not. So yeah, that will be, and that's why spacing is so important and knowing where to stand is. Because, you know, if you were playing a game like King of Fighters, or you were playing a game more like or even a game or Street Fighter 6, or if you're playing a game like Melty Blood, or if you're playing a game like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, playing the mid range is kind of like, you know, of a high risk. It's high risk, but in Street Fighter 5 it's not as much high risk. And why is that? Well, because there aren't system mechanics like drive rush. There isn't no 66L. There isn't any, like, you know, hops, hyper hops. There isn't any super dash. And funnily enough, even among these neutral skip options that I'm naming, all of them are, you know, reactable and punishable to different levels. So that's why I said you have to think about everything. So that's really all for today. That's really all I want to say. That's why you have to understand threat ranges and how they affect reactions. Also, this is like a follow-up, an addendum to like the mental stack video. So yeah, so, you know, just, you know, lab, think about what to do. You know, that's all I can really say, because that's all it really comes down to. But I hope this video finds you well. There really won't be any fighting or gameplay footage at the end of this video, because this is more of something that you have to, you do play the game and you understand it. You do gain understanding of this concept by playing, but a lot of this is just thinking about things in the lab, or testing things, or seeing things in replays, and just coming up with a fighting game strategy of what to do. And so, you know, that's all I really want to say for today. That's threat ranges and reactions. So you know, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and, you know, go play some fighting games, bro.